Railway Conversations with Doc Frank.
Hello, this is Doc Frank and welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today I have a guest from Poland that's in Europe, if you should know. His name is Jakub Tomczak and he is a lawyer by education. So we will explore in this episode how his legal education fits together with his job in the railway industry, what he does to keep learning and improving for his future positions and also for his current position. Of course, we talk about innovation and the future of rail and much more. Please enjoy this conversation. Jakub, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here. I'm delighted. My name is Jakub. I'm a Polish legal advisor, professional lawyer, and it's my academic education. But I'm very interested in railway industry, and that's how I end up here with you in this podcast.
Yes. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. I know that might look confusing for someone that I'm a lawyer, but I'm trying to specialize in rail industry. More or less 9 or 10 years ago, when I worked for Ministry of Infrastructure, that was my first job after my end of education at university after graduation. I thought that there is some lack of legal professionals in this industry because all of the job was done by engineers. And of course, I don't contradict the engineers as they knowledge in engineering, but they didn't have, in my opinion, a decent knowledge when the engineering meet the law, and that's the outcome that I think in every country exists, that in some step the law comes into force and you have to check the regulations, maybe your national regulations, maybe here Europeans. And that was my first thought that maybe I can do something about it. And maybe that's my way of, creating a personal brand or creating my own company, for example, in the future. Yeah, that was my reasoning about this case.
Okay, so let me rewind this for a moment. So when I came across your profile, and that wasn't really very hard. I had a podcast guest from Poland before, Artur Wolnica. So maybe that was one of the triggers how I came across your profile. And then you've got a newsletter here in the railway industry that we will talk about a bit later. And when I looked at your profile, as I do for my guests for doing the research, there were a number of things that I would not necessarily expect in this combination in a single person's profile. So my objective for this conversation with you was really to connect the dots, which I like doing. So basically taking all those different bits and pieces and then trying to piece them together to understand the person behind all that and the reasoning for the combination of those things. So just rewinding what you just said. So you've got a legal background, a legal academic education. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you started working in the field of infrastructure related to railway. You looked at the industry, you found it generally interesting, and you identified a lack of legal representation, shall we say, in that industry. That's again correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
So I think that's excellent thinking, especially if you did this at the beginning of your career, because there will, of course, be situations in the railway industry where lawyers are needed. And I have always appreciated when I met somebody in such a special discipline who actually had some kind of understanding of the railway industry. Like not just a lawyer that normally deals with, I don't know, civil cases or what have you, but somebody who was actually interested in the rail industry and had a certain understanding, a certain relation to the rail industry. So from that perspective, I would definitely be a big fan of your approach of being a lawyer with an interest in rail. Did you also have some kind of engineering education, or how did you bridge that gap from a pure legal background to a more engineering oriented? Because in your profile, it looked like a mix of legal and engineering. And I'm just wondering where the engineering came in.
So 2 years ago, I graduated from one of the Polish technical universities. It was postgraduate studies related to signaling systems. It was also organized by the company, one of the Polish companies which produce signaling equipment for infrastructure. And now I'm studying. It's an online course of railway engineering in Technical University in Delft, the Netherlands. But it's more like it has a broader approach to the railway system, for the infrastructure, for organizing the real-time operations and maintenance.
Okay,
not only signaling.
So you have a legal background, so a full education on law. Then you start working with and for the railway industry, and then you start developing an interest, and that makes you saying, okay, well, I want to close the gap to engineering, or I want to improve myself in the engineering space. So I do some postgraduate studies to get an additional degree or an additional education to just understand things better, and probably to see whether the engineers are really always right or whether they try to put wool over your eyes. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I wanted to, like you said, I wanted to close the gap between my legal background and my new approach for the engineering. I mean, I won't be an engineer, I understand that, but I want to understand how engineers think, or what they are supposed to do, maybe, or even in my current position, we have several meetings with engineers, and that for me it's easier to understand their position and their point of view. So I think it's better to connect the dots from different I don't know what to say, different fields. Not to be just a lawyer and not to draft contracts or go to court and spend time with drafting other documents. That was my reasoning.
Yeah, there are not very many people that can really build a bridge between different disciplines or different sides of the same thing. And the people who can do that are normally quite valuable. So in my own example, for instance, I worked for 20 years with railway signaling supply companies, with one of the big global names, Siemens, Thales, GE, the likes of those. And then for the last 12 years nearly, I worked client side. So it was a complete change. Same industry, so still railway signaling, but I completely moved over to the client side and worked in project management client side, in consulting, strategy consulting client side. And so I have basically seen both sides. I've sat on the side of the client, trying to make sense of the suppliers in procurement processes and stuff like that. And I worked on the supply side for a long time to really understand that side as well. And what I found was that it's really, really helpful, and not very, very many people understand this. say you sit on client side and you try to make sense out of certain supplier behavior. If you have worked with suppliers for many years, you are much more capable in doing this and explaining certain behavior, or even predicting certain behavior. Like, for example, how does a railway organization get a 100% response rate on an expression of interest? How do you motivate the supply industry to play ball with you, to come back to you, to give you information that you need? And so to me, that wasn't really that difficult, but for many others, they looked at this and said, well, how did you do that? We've never seen anything like that. And I guess what you're doing is a very similar approach where you're coming from one leg to stand on, which is the legal, and then you're adding the engineering bit. And that makes you more dangerous in a positive way, because you can combine now the engineering understanding, the developing understanding of engineering, with your solid footing on legal, and probably that makes you do a better job. At least that's what I assume happening.
Yeah, I try to do my best, of course, and that's true. But my legal education, of course, helps me with reading the documents, or let's say European directives. They are not written in common language, and not everyone has enough patience to understand or to read even the whole article in one directive, right? So for me, it's easier to translate the language, the legal language, to the common language for an engineer, and explain them what should be done. Maybe in the case of trackside approval process, which is related to ERTMS, let's say. That's how it started 4 years ago.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I've tried before to read some of these European directives, and I realized that this is a kind of language that I'm definitely not used to, where apparently, I mean, it must make sense for the people who have written it, and it must also make sense for certain people who read it. It didn't make so much sense, not all of it anyway, for me as an engineer, with a technical education. So my hope has always been that the TSIs themselves, the technical specifications for interoperability, and the ETCS standards are the technical documents that are written in a language that an engineer understands. And that would basically be a translation, hopefully a correct translation of the intent of the European directives. But I could imagine that with regards to product approvals and stuff like that, there is probably a bit more to it. There's probably more understanding of the directives needed than what you want to do if you just want to develop an ETCS compliant product or something like that. Is that kind of a correct understanding, or?
I mean, just directive is just a directive. I mean, that's it's a frame, legal frame for let's say TCS, but everything, of course, is inside the TSI standards and European standards. And of course, these I don't remember the name of TSI, not TSI, but created by UNISIG standards. Baseline, the baseline for ETCS. Yeah,
baseline 4 is the latest one. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Can I ask you, and I obviously don't want you to violate any confidentiality agreements that you had in place, but can you give me an example how your combination of skills would be put to optimum use? Like what kind of work do you do for clients where I would say, oh yeah, you really need somebody with your qualifications for that, and you would do a much better job there than if somebody asked me, for example, to help them with a certain thing.
Okay, so we can focus on my position at CPK. Maybe I should just briefly introduce this company. It's state-owned company which is going to build a high-speed railway in Poland and as well as new international airport. And I work in this railway department. It's a safety team, safety and a bit of interoperability team. So my job relies on creating safety documents. We created safety management system and several standards how to introduce safety requirements into the company when we start the investment process and when we start the building process. So my main legal framework is this EU regulation 402, which is change management. Just the brief title. We also introducing the requirements for ERTMS trackside approval, which is related, of course, to the EU framework. And that's my main scope of activity at the moment. We are preparing this process. We are just gaining the information at the moment, but we are going to submit the files to the ERA, European Agency for Railways, and just start the process of trackside approval for the newest high-speed tunnel in Poland. Because the tunnel is the most complicated, I think, structure. It will be this tunnel will be going under the city in the center of Poland, and that's the main idea of this position now.
Yeah. Which city would that be? Is that Warsaw?
No, it's Łódź.
Okay.
Lodz. Yeah, it's in the center, but from Warsaw, this line will connect Warsaw or Warsaw, if you want, with the city of Łódź.
Yeah. Warsaw would probably be the English pronunciation would probably be the better one. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned interoperability and you mentioned safety, and this happens to be the title of the newsletter that you have brought out. How did you come to create a newsletter in this field? So when did you do that? How long does it exist? What do you cover in there? And what made you come up with that in the first place?
So we are talking about LinkedIn newsletter, right? Because
yes.
Because
is there more?
I started. Yeah, there are 2 newsletters. First, I started on my own blog. Which, I think my blog will turn 9 years in the mid of March. I think so. Yeah, around 15th of March. So I created newsletter to communicate with subscribers because just to create the content which will last a bit longer than a single post. And to communicate directly with people who are more interested in the content I create. So I started with sending just simple brief information about my new post on my blog and so on. And it was it's doing social media is pretty time consuming and might be even exhausting. So it eventually it's didn't last I would like to, because for half of a year I sent 6 newsletters, then I have a break for I don't know, another 6 months and so on. And then I created this LinkedIn newsletter because I thought maybe I can keep in touch with people from different countries or continents, just like you, for example. And now I'm trying to send a newsletter twice a month, one in Polish and again the same content but in English. And that's I'm trying to find out what is interesting at the moment in this railway industry, create some article and just send it, post it and send it.
So the second newsletter, I mean, a newsletter on LinkedIn is pretty much some kind of post, but a bit more organized, right? So that it's easier to find
Yes.
your contributions again later on, because they are basically stored away in a specific area, and all your newsletter contributions can basically be found underneath that newsletter. So I understand that. This second newsletter, how do you distribute this? Is this via an email subscriber list, or how does that work?
This one on my blog, right? Or this on LinkedIn.
Okay, no, I understood that you had a blog for 9 years.
Yes, and I have a newsletter, and there is one newsletter for subscribers on my blog, and another one is on LinkedIn.
Okay,
the second
good,
one.
good. So your second newsletter and your blog are basically related. So the newsletter is just a way to send out your blog post, and again in a structured way. Okay, good, understood that. All right, so. So the idea, how do you get your content for these things? I mean, I have contributed to one of those newsletters. I guess the LinkedIn one. Is that correct? Right. So
my blog. Yeah, it was my blog.
That was for your blog. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So I did for those who don't know, I did a guest contribution to Jakub's newsletter about an overview of rail signaling in Australia, modern rail signaling. That is, I'm not so much interested in conventional signaling. I'm more specialized in the modern technologies, the likes of CBTC and ETCS and things like that. So I've done that, and this is now basically the payback, that you come up to the podcast, and we're doing an episode together. So are you doing most of the content yourself if you don't happen to have like a guest author, or is that a regular thing that you get other people in writing contributions for you?
I recently asked a few people about writing an article. It was Arthur. Ivan, you also had him conversation.
Yes, close circle. Yeah, I had both Arthur and Ivan on my show as guests. Yeah.
Yes, and you. So I mostly create the content on my own, and I have access to the databases like eExplorer and Science Direct, and I just search for interesting articles and read them, to find out what's going on in the rail industry. And of course, first thing is that I'm educating myself, and I'm developing, and I'm gaining knowledge. And after that, I create an article about some case I read, for example. And that's how it works.
I just very recently read something about ways to learn and how you learn better. And so reading something or hearing something is one thing. If you want to take it a step further, you need to write about it. And if you want to take it another step further, you need to teach about it. So writing, I agree. I see this from my own posts on LinkedIn. You just don't start writing anything. You have to do some kind of thinking beforehand, clarifying your thoughts, maybe doing some research, looking something up or so before you actually start writing a post. At least if you want to write intelligently, which I do, and I guess you want to do as well. So yeah,
sometimes it's just writing. You just draft an article, then it's like the work looks like this. That after a few, I don't know, hours, just think that's no, I don't want to publish it, and then you just do different things, and then just come back to writing again, and it lasts like 1 week, 2 weeks, even 1 month, for example. I don't try to be as regular as maybe someone would like to be. I try to do everything. I try to write every week something, but it's not that I have to. I don't put don't put the pressure on myself. I just want to write when I'm feeling good about it and post it when I'm feeling good about it, because eventually it will turn out that I'm following the numbers of subscribers and the other, the what's the number? What's the name for this? For the numbers on your LinkedIn, the followers.
And followers, yeah. Followers or connections, yeah.
That's not the case.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind why you're doing this, and I'm talking from my own experience, because I've done a newsletter previously for about 2 years, and then it just became too onerous, so I terminated that. Now I'm doing the podcast, where I'm trying very hard to have an episode every week, which sometimes is difficult if I don't find enough partners to have conversations with. So it can happen very easily that it really becomes a chore, where you say, okay, well, oh my God, by Thursday I have to have another episode of the podcast. It's Tuesday already. What do I do? And then you do some kind of last minute work, and you, in the worst case, you start dreading the whole initiative. So it's really important to keep in mind and remind yourself, okay, why am I doing this? So in your case, you said a lot of the stuff that you're doing is for your own education, to basically dive deeper in certain topics. And so even in the worst case that nobody would read your newsletter, the initial objective of learning something through the writing process would still be there. Yeah. And
I learned,
and I think that's.
Yeah, I learned that eventually it will turn out that this knowledge will pay off in the future.
Mm.
You never know when, but next year, maybe next 3 years, it will pay off. Because I read about something and I gained the knowledge, or I remember where to look for the information. Yeah.
Yeah. Or other people in the industry realize that you have written about that. So obviously you must know something about that subject matter. And then it's really a question how much credit you've been given. Yeah. And some people may think you know much more about the topic than you actually do by just writing, I don't know, a newsletter article about it. But I mean, if somebody asks you to do more on a certain topic, then you can still do more research. Yeah. So the first step really is to be identified as somebody who is more than average knowledgeable about a certain topic. Yeah. And if that's something that the newsletter helps with, that's certainly a very useful thing. Yeah. So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's why I was asked to write an articles for example, Global Railway Review or Railtech. It's the Netherlands, this Dutch internet service railways. Yeah, it's also some sort of and it's good for me. It makes me feel better if I'm asked to write for an international paper, for example.
Yeah, I can imagine. And obviously this kind of exposure helps your positioning in the industry further. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a snowball effect. The more you publish, the more other people pay attention to you, and then they may invite you to publish even more or speak at a conference or whatever, which again increases your exposure. So that's an ongoing upwards circle. Yeah, ideally it should be. Yeah.
Right.
In your LinkedIn profile, you talk about your interest in the future of railways and also mentioning AI. Let's talk about this a little bit. I mean, if you're currently working in the field of interoperability and safety, to what extent, I wouldn't say these topics are not future oriented, because that's debatable. I'm just interested in your view. To what extent topics like interoperability and safety are linked or related to innovation in railways and the future of railways?
Well, I think that somehow it's opening currently, because in the EU there is AI Act, and it states that when the interoperability directive will be changed, the AI requirements should be introduced in the interoperability of railways. So I think that's the matter of years that these cases will be introduced in the railways. I think that, of course, we can use AI now in different, I think so. We can use them in different scenarios, for example, for predictive maintenance, or for predicting the climate changes and how it will, what will be the impact of climate changes on the railways, for example, for the catenary or rails, or I don't know, maybe let's say flooding or huge rainfalls. We can predict them with AI, and we can see what's the future, what will be the future of railways in this circumstances. That's my imagination of this using the AI, for example.
Yeah. Okay. I have I'm not sure whether that's a different view, but I have a certain angle on this topic of the future of railways. So next week I'm going, well, not next week by the time that people get to see this episode, but next week from today's meeting on, I'm giving a live training course here in Perth. And one of the topics that I was asked to present on is future trends. And to me, I mean, many people talk about future trends being something like AI and something like Internet of Things and digital twins and big data and all these fantastic constructs that not many people, I believe, really understand, let alone the applications in the railway. So for me, a future trend is much more conservative. A future trend, for example, will be to find a way to implement ETCS, a system like ETCS, across Europe in an accelerated manner with full interoperability. That, to me, would be an innovation, because if you see how Europe has struggled with ETCS interoperability over the last 25 years, then having projects which are straightforward going towards an interoperable outcome would certainly be an improvement, a big improvement. And because that wasn't there in the past, if it gets to be there in the future, then to me that's an innovation. So people need to do something different and need to improve something in order to get a better outcome with regards to ETCS interoperability. Also, in regards to a cost-efficient delivery of ETCS. Yeah, it's to me, it's mind-boggling every time I hear something or I read something about an ETCS conference, which happens on a regular basis in Europe, somewhere in Europe, mostly in France or in Belgium or places like that. Every time there are people in front presenting and they're complaining about the cost of installation being too high, about the speed of rollout being too slow, so it's repeated topics again and again and again, where you just sit there, you look at it from the outside and you said, well, guys, you've been complaining about the same things for the last at least 15 years. Where's the progress? where's the solution? Where's the improvement that you say, well, okay, the things that we complained about 15 years ago, we now have a different kind of complaints because those problems back then, we have resolved that. We have taken them forward. We have progressed them. But the complaints are still the same. So that means that those problems haven't been resolved for the last 15 years, if not more, probably more 20 years than 15. So to me, that's really something where innovation or future of rail should focus on more. So not so much thinking about how can I introduce the latest and greatest technologies into railways, but in the meantime, I'm not even capable of delivering something that I've already had for 25 years, like ETCS, in a cost-efficient manner. So to me, it looks like you try to run before you can walk. Yeah, 5 minutes ago you crawled. Now you just stood up and made your first few steps, and now you're trying to run. Where I say, well, can we just start walking properly before we consider what we need to do in order to be able to run? So I'm interested. So that's kind of my view, which takes this whole innovation thing a little bit back and say, well, just start getting the basics right. And I'm curious to hear your views about that and basically take you a little bit as a sounding board for that.
Yeah, that's true. That's maybe might look like a huge leap for someone. But on the other hand, maybe if we struggled with crawling for 15 years, maybe we can give it a try sometimes and make a bigger leap just for the mankind. Because maybe we have to forget about the next step and just take 2 steps or three steps further. I don't know. Maybe that's maybe that would be the approach to introduce better development in this industry. Because I'm not naive, and I know that we won't introduce the AI in the railway industry like we can imagine or see it in the movies. But we will introduce it in several points of this industry. For example, let's say predictive maintenance. We can have AI which will more accurately calculate when the rail will break, for example. But we won't have an AI which will be steering the railway traffic, for example, right? Of course, we can have a Geo4, right? This rate of automation, GOA. But that's also the future in the railways worldwide. Of course, there is in Australia, in the Rio Tinto, right? Geo4.
Yeah. Okay, but if I just wind this back and I look at a problem that the industry has specifically in Europe, which is interoperability or lack of interoperability. So that's a problem that was identified in Europe in the late 1980s. So then in 1990, they came up with the idea, okay, let's do something which is called the European Rail Traffic Management System, which has an ATP component, which is ETCS, the European Train Control System. And ETCS is meant to be a replacement for all the national ATP systems to basically have one harmonized system across Europe. Okay, so that was in the early 90s. Now we are 30 years later, and we are still discussing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So a locomotive or train these days that wants to be interoperable, they basically still have to be dual fitted or multi fitted with different ATP technologies plus ETCS on top of that, simply because we haven't rolled out ETCS everywhere in Europe. So in order to get maximum benefit out of ETCS, you really need to roll that stuff out. It needs to be everywhere in Europe, because only then you can start reaping the benefits of interoperable rail traffic and cost savings, because you only need one system on the locomotive and not, 3 or 4 or 5. And and this problem doesn't go away. It doesn't go away by saying, let's forget about ETCS and we go to the next step. Well, there is no next step other than ETCS.
I didn't want to
won't solve that problem. Yeah,
and
AI. No, I didn't say you do that, but I mean, I'm just saying this would not be a solution. Yeah, saying let's take the next step after ETCS. I wouldn't even know what that is. And AI, I think, doesn't solve that problem either. So I understand applications of AI, as you said, predictive maintenance. That's almost a classic for AI, where I'm pretty sure it will be very helpful. But solving the getting a faster rollout of ETCS done, AI won't help us at all with that. At least I can't see how. And there are other things related to the rollout of ETCS, where these new technologies don't really help us. So big data doesn't help. I don't know, Internet of Things doesn't help, AI doesn't help, mobility as a service doesn't help. So all these big thought bubbles, yes, they are there. I don't want to discard them. What I am saying is we have an existing problem at our hand in Europe, which is the rollout of an interoperable signaling technology. And we need some innovation and some improvement to get this done. Because we need to get it done. There is no alternative to getting it done. And what my maybe kind of criticism is that people are already jumping on the next topic. Yeah, people haven't just talked about ETCS level 3 before we have even rolled out level 2. People are now just starting to talk about ETCS level 4. And what the heck is that? It's platooning of trains. I said, well, what do you do if the first train derails? Yeah, I don't know. That's an unresolved safety problem. So the whole idea is complete rubbish, but it distracts people for the time being. Today, it distracts people from doing a proper job with ETCS level 2. Thinking about level 3, and then some people think, well, maybe we should wait for level 3 because that's so much better than level 2, because 3 is a higher number than 2, it must be better. It does my head in, really. So whenever I would want to just contribute to the discussion about innovation in rail, I say, well, how can we make sure that we get the basics right? And if this requires innovation, then hooray, that's the kind of innovation which I think really brings the industry forward. And we still can have people sitting in the corner thinking about, okay, well, how can we have AI contributing to the rail industry and this and that and the other? But what I wouldn't want is a 100% focus on these new innovations that will not help us solving the problem at hand, which is something as basic as the rollout of ETCS in Europe. And that's really, to me, that's the elephant in the room. I think that's the single biggest problem or the single biggest challenge that the rail industry in Europe has. And if this cannot be resolved, then all the other innovations we can basically forget about, because we still need to change locomotives at the national borders, right? As we did 30 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I totally agree with you. That's true. But I was thinking about some, not covering the whole railway industry, but just several spots at the moment, because we'll see what the future brings, right? And but yes, if we want to resolve the problem of ETCS, at least at the borders, there will be no interoperability. And of course, it's the progress of implementing the ETCS is it's just slow at the moment. Definitely in Poland it's slow, and no, I don't want to mention the GSMR or FMCS because it's even slower, and that's a big problem for the railways here in Poland.
Yeah, because there are commercial factors kicking in. So I think a massive reason why ETCS has been so slow in the last 2 decades is the lack of viable business cases. Yeah. So at the end of the day, ETCS is predominantly a new technology for automatic train protection. But if you already have an existing system, a legacy system for ATP, which you want to replace with ETCS, what's the benefit? So it's definitely not a benefit in terms of rail safety. You may say that ETCS may have a marginal higher level of safety than your old ATP because maybe it fails less often, so therefore availability goes up, and that means you have a certain level of safety more often than in the old system. But this difference is not enough to justify the business case, to justify an investment in ETCS. So for many years, the commercial equation for ETCS was just net negative. And that's where Railway said, well, it's not worth it. It's not worth it investing in ETCS. And it's only recently that companies like Germany have identified a combination of technologies where they say, well, this is something that's the future of our railways. We call it digital rail, and it's a combination of new interlockings, distributed interlockings, plus ETCS, plus automatic train operations. And applying all this will increase our capacity in a way that nothing else can increase it. And this is a solid basis for a business case where we get real benefits from the investment in ETCS plus the other things. And now suddenly it's accelerating in Germany. And I just had a discussion about Great Britain where the situation is very similar. So they now have a situation for East Coast Main Line where they do have a business case because the signaling equipment is due for replacement anyway. So they say, well, rather than replacing it with another generation of conventional signaling, we're replacing it with ETCS. And then we can get rid of the signals, and then we have operational improvements, and that will really help us. So now we have a business case for East Coast Main Line, and off we go. Suddenly we have a huge ETCS project in Great Britain. But none of this really is to do with innovation, with doing things completely differently. It's more like understanding the root cause of the delays of the ETCS rollout and then addressing those things and finding solutions, not just identifying what is the problem. We have a problem with the funding of onboard equipment. Right. Okay. I've heard this for the last 20 years. So what's the solution for that? It's difficult. And we need some money. We need some money from Europe. And then Europe will say, well, we've given you money for the last 20 years. So when does that stop? We can't fund everything by ourselves. So there must be other solutions. So where are the other solutions? Oh, wow, we don't know. But we still bring up the same problem. So, so I think that's really an area where innovation is much more needed than just thinking of like AI and really new technologies. So another example of innovation, again, in Great Britain, for East Coast Main Line, they came up with a new delivery model, which fosters more collaboration between all the different stakeholders. So that's an innovation. That's an innovation in the project delivery structure. It's different from what they had before, and it's more useful to achieve what they want to achieve. So it's an innovation. So to me, and everybody in England will confirm that the future for ETCS rollout in the UK is a delivery model like they are now practicing on East Coast Main Line. So that's an innovation. That's the future of rail. And that's something that they didn't have in the last 20 years, but it's something that they want to have in the future because they realized, this is new and it's helpful and it solves a problem. Let's go for that.
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you briefly about the Polish situation because the infrastructure, which is under renewal process, not necessarily will be equipped with ETCS because that's because of the problem with vehicles. I mean, the locomotives or EMUs, they are not equipped with ATP. We don't have an ATP in Poland.
Yeah.
The safety relies on a train driver, which he has a button. He presses the button every 20 minutes or so, and that means that he's awake and the train can, just follow the route. So, of course, high speed we are going to build, and other infrastructure which is in 10T network, and which is, of course, subsidized with the European Union money. It will be equipped with ETCS because that's the requirement.
Yes.
But, of course, yes, I agree with you that the innovation should be a change of thinking. The way of thinking should be changed because the operator can't say we don't want ETCS because we have old trains or old vehicles. Maybe think about how to change your fleet or equip them with the ETCS. I know there's just, it's very easy to say because the amount of money required for this, for a new train is huge. So not every operator will be happy with this solution. And
and the cost of retrofitting ETCS to trains is very expensive as well. Yeah,
but for example,
but this is something that people should just have considered. There's no point in having an ETCS infrastructure, maybe even without signals, and then you don't have trains that can operate on that infrastructure. Then you really shot yourself in the foot. So you've got to have a critical mass of trains that can run on the ETCS infrastructure, and then the ETCS infrastructure made sense. So a lot of these migration programs should have been led by the onboard fitment, but I'm not sure I've seen this in very many European countries. Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Switzerland has done a relatively good job. I think Switzerland started to fit like 400 vehicles or so. By the time they had the first line with ETCS, where I thought, okay, well, they have understood how it's done. Yeah. But in many other countries, as you just said, there's a problem with the onboard fitment. Yeah. But as long as you haven't solved that problem, all the other stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right. For example, we have our cargo market is liberalized totally, and we have more or less 90 operators in cargo. So they're different, like small, medium, and big companies, and not every company will be happy with requirement to change their locomotives, because sometimes they just operate on a very small market, just locally, and they are not interested in changing everything because they just don't need it. They have diesel locomotives, for example, just for maneuvers, and that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, just for perspective, some smaller freight operators, they may buy a locomotive second-hand. So they may get a diesel locomotive for, let's say, €2 million, just to put the number up in the air. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly there's a requirement to fit this locomotive with ETCS because it's not yet fitted with ETCS, but needs to be fitted with ETCS. So then they ask for ETCS fitment in the supply industry, and they come back with, okay, ETCS equipment together with an installation design for that type of locomotive. So that's €1 million just for your one locomotive. And said, wait a minute, I only paid 2 million for the entire locomotive. And now you're telling me I need to pay half as much just for the little bit of ETCS on the locomotive. I can't afford that. And that's a problem for many small operators. And then they basically say, well, I need some funding support. Otherwise I can't get it done. And then maybe they get funding support, but then the big operators say, oh, wait a minute, that's not equal treatment of everybody. Why do the small ones get support and the big ones don't get support? So we need to be out of pocket ourselves and so on. So it's an ongoing problem. And I wouldn't claim I've got a solution for that. But what I am saying is that this is an area where the thought process of innovation and finding solutions. To me, innovation is very much about finding solutions to problems that weren't solved in the past, but are to be solved for the future. That's where I would like to have more more emphasis and more traction. And I'm glad we agree on that. I'm conscious of your time. I found this quite an interesting and inspiring discussion. So thank you very much for that. I was actually hoping, when I tried to connect the dots from your profile, hearing that you're interested in rail innovation and AI and things like that, but at the same time doing a newsletter on interoperability and safety, I thought, maybe you would have an understanding that how interoperability and safety really fit together with innovation and with the future of rail. Because whatever you do, and that's specifically a topic for AI, you must not compromise the safety of your railway. Full stop. You must not, under no circumstance. Yeah. So safety is something that you will always have, because otherwise people are going to die. And then people are not interested whether this is powered by AI or Internet of Things or what have you. If you can't rely to get to your destination safely by train, the whole concept is flawed. Yeah. And interoperability is the same thing. If we still have the same operational processes as 30 years ago with locomotive change or multiple fitment on locomotives with like 13 antennas underneath the locomotive, then where's the innovation? Yeah, we haven't got that. Yeah. So thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the best for the future of your newsletter and blog and stuff. I think you are on a very good way. I really admire your vision of combining the legal profession with the engineering profession, specifically for railways. And I think you can do a lot of good things in the future. So all the best for that.
Thank you much. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, and have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Doc Frank again. What can I say? Even the best CBTC training in the world arguably can get even better. And that's what's happened with the brand new 2024 Understanding CBTC Fundamentals training. This is an upgrade from the previous CBTC Kickstarter training that exists since 2014 and has been continuously refined, improved, and updated. You have a massive 30 video lessons that you can watch on demand as long as you live. You've got lifelong access. You can build a certifiable CBTC competency, and the certification is offered by me as well as an additional option. You do not need prior signaling knowledge for this training. Just imagine that you can learn the fundamentals of CBTC without needing to know anything about railway signaling before the training. So that really makes it suitable for anybody working in the railway industry and for anybody being interested in working in the railway industry. The training is topped up by an industry-leading Q&A support over at least 12 months. You can sign up for this fantastic training under docfranktraining.podia.com/CBTC. I repeat that, docfranktraining.podia.com/CBTC. And if you needed one additional argument, this course is actually cheaper than last year's training. So that's my way of helping you fighting inflation. Hope you enjoy, and I hope to see you at this CBTC training. Hi, it's Doc Frank again. I hope you liked today's episode. I like to keep it as simple as possible, so I only have one single request for you. If you like this podcast, please tell your friends and colleagues about it. That's all I want, because that's a service that I'm providing to the industry, and I would like as many people as possible to listen to this podcast and learn something from it. So please share, and until next time, keep it simple, and bye for now. Thank you for listening.